Welcome to Trailblazers and Coffee, your podcast for elevating women in leadership, with your hosts, Dr. Kristina Pecora and Dr. Abby Brown.
Brenda and Ola, I just love seeing your faces, and this is now twice within a month's time, and I'm so happy about it.
The same here.
Yeah.
Welcome to Trailblazers and Coffee, our podcast. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
So happy to have you. So we ask two questions of each guest at the beginning. So because it's Trailblazers and Coffee, we talk about blazers, or at least our attire. A blazer mood is you get inspired by other people. You dress, your beauty, you dress to the spirit that you feel that day. And so like if you were to wear a blazer or a wrap, like what I'm wearing, how would that express how you were feeling that day? So like, for example, I can't wait for spring to get here, but I wanted to wear something like bold and also comfortable. So I'm wearing this flannel wrap thing that's keeping me very cozy today. I also made it, so this is why this is my
But you
mood
look
today.
good. You look nice in it.
Thank you. It got a little warm, actually. So Brenda, what's your blazer mood today?
I have a leather jacket, a maroon leather jacket. I see this as groundedness and African roots. And it speaks to the place of, empathy and like being grounded in the African roots. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And how
Yeah.
about you, Ola?
Okay, I'm actually not putting on a blazer. I'm putting on a fabric. This is a traditional fabric called Ankara in Nigeria. And as you can see, it's a flowery, multicolored top, right? It's a representation of beauty, representation of diversity, representation of brightness, sweetness, different things coming together, that it could represent like connection, interdependence, building on one another. It represents connection. Yeah, connection, right? So
Love it.
that's
Love
it
it.
for me.
And then we also ask, what's in your cup? And in my cup today is just straight black coffee because this is necessary for me this Friday. What's in your cup, Ola?
Mine is just water, but a chilled water is a big mug of water. Yeah,
Nice.
chilled water. So that's it. Nothing
Stuff
else.
of life. Water. How about you, Brenda?
I got hibiscus tea. So I like hibiscus tea. It's really good for women, actually. It's a good balancer for the space I am in my circle. It's like great for divine femininity, they say.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to start out by having each of you introduce yourselves in the way that you want to. But let's bring a little bit of our trauma-informedness, right? So please give me, and I didn't give you a heads up about this, so I'm catching you unawares. Give me your name. Give me what you're doing right now professionally or in your communities for leadership or even in your families and social circles for leadership. And then give me the animal that you would want to be if you were an animal. And Ola, you laughed first, so I'm going to have you start.
Oh my goodness.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Okay. Olajumoke. I always like to introduce myself with my full name. I am so proud of my names. Olajumoke, Olabimikwe Dada. Of course, I'm a global health specialist with also a trauma-informed practitioner. So currently, I'm actually doing quite a number of stuff, planning for next month is known as the month for women. So there's going to be the International Women's Day. So
Yes.
instead of us hosting, because there are a lot of activities for March 7, 8, 8 is usually the celebration for International Women's Day. So I'm planning something for March 15th, and it is called Brunch and Play, right? It's going to be like a lot of activities. We're going to be painting. It's going to be a lot of activity around the theme for the year, and also with an infusion of trauma-informed, with an infusion of trauma, whatever, you know. Then currently we're also planning with my siblings. We just opened a foundation to keep the legacy of our late parents and one of our siblings that passed. We got a grant in January, so we are planning like an outreach for the Easter. I'm not even so sure if that thing is going to hold because everybody seems busy. Lastly, also providing support to University of Washington. Currently, we're hosting about 4 courses, and we're still in the recruitment phase. And about 4 courses is also in process, ongoing. Different 4 courses go on. So we have 4 courses per season. So the winter season is ongoing, the spring season is on recruitment, and the last 4 season, they are picking up their certificates. So it's a whole lot happening right now. So I think I'm going to stop there.
That's all very exciting. Thank you. But what animal would you be?
Animal.
Hey, To be honest, a couple of them, but I think I'll just go with the bear
Okay.
because I'm quite protective of the people that I love. I love to care for the people around me. And so I'll go with the mother bear, like the bear, that part of the bear, I will assume that part of the bear.
I love it. I love it. I feel that very, very much for you. Brenda.
So my name is Brenda Jepkorir Sharp. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a psychologist, life coach here. I have several projects running. One is something I launched last 2024, at the end of 2024, which is a narrative exposure therapy based program that really borrows from the wisdom from my own culture, and like combines as well somatic practices in the space of healing. So that's something that is ongoing. I have an app that is developing that will work with that. And that's something I'm excited about. I have like a few individuals, a group that I am working with that is starting the program in the next few weeks. So that's one of the projects. The other thing is like continuously I work as a therapist in the trauma space, but in the recent past, I'm working more with sexual minorities and gender minorities. It's been so difficult lately because of like most of the groups depend on funding, and because that has shifted, but the need is like constantly high. So I do a lot of trauma work with sexual and gender minorities here in Kenya. I also have like an exciting event coming up in next month, which we are working with a group of Afrocentric healing experts in different spaces. So I'll be talking about like aspects of the role of ceremonies and rituals in the space of healing and mental health, and how we can bring it back and support mental health. So yeah, those are the things. Oh, I also am a not very recent mom anymore, and I am distracted here and there by a little daughter, and it's exciting to be in this space. So in my culture, usually every clan is given an animal spirit that identifies them. So this question usually puts me at a position where I may have to move away from my clan, because my clan is not quite an animal, it's rain. Rain as an animal. So like rain is not an animal, but aspects of rain in the sense that it brings light, it's like life, I mean, but it can also be destructive. So they be seen as can be very fierce, but can also be very gentle and calming. So because it's not an animal, maybe I could borrow from an eagle. I like the idea that it can see far because I'm very visionary and creative and targeting. I like that it flies and like overlooks from above. So yes, I'll go with the eagle.
Love it. Love it so much. Abby, we know who you are, but what animal are you?
Today would be a leopard because,
Ooh,
well, I just think they're so beautiful and fast, and my little boy loves leopards. So we're very all about, the leopards and cheetahs and
Oh.
lions and tigers right now. I love my leopard print.
I love that. I love
How
that
about
too.
you?
Love that too. Yeah, so I've been really contemplating. I am a horse in the Chinese zodiac or the lunar calendar, right? And just last week
Hmm.
we began the year of the fire horse, and elementally I am also a fire horse. And so I've been trying to think about why that makes sense. I definitely identify as a change agent, but I think what's special about a fire horse is that they push change. Sometimes it's a very assertive or even maybe aggressive way of going about change. Um, and so, trying to temper that and find balance, but still loving that about myself internally. So that's where I've been. And I just wanted to take a second to not only welcome our guests, but to give a little background for the listener about why and how they are here. So, Brenda and Ola and I met when I worked for the US government, and I actually hired the two of them to work on trauma-informed policing curricula with me and my team. And eventually, we were able to develop a full curriculum and then teach it to border police agents at the Kenya-Somalia border. And after I left, Brenda and Ola were instrumental in carrying that program through to its graduation day. And so that's how we met, but it was really nice too, going back and forth from Kenya and learning about them as people, not just colleagues, and really, learning about how warm and community focused they were and becoming part of their community. So, yeah, it's always good to see you guys. Okay, let's start with some questions. And I won't throw in any of the questions I won't surprise you with any more questions like I just did with the animal. So you both work in the trauma space, right?
Yeah.
Trauma and mental health. What does trauma look like in your communities? And how does that maybe differ from what the textbooks say?
Brenda will go first this time.
Okay. So, of course, there are certain things that are quite textbook and common across the globe, and I want to acknowledge them. One is the increasing rates of addiction among the youth, which has become like a common problem, as well as the family units, very systemic problems. But in the country, and something that I have really put a focus over the years is how colonial trauma has impacted the ways people live here in Kenya. First, what we see is the economic patterns. I feel colonial trauma, something that outsiders may not see, will be seen in how people relate with resources. I feel there's an element of people relying so much on like help and victimhood that is rooted in a colonial mindset that like taught people that they are not enough. There's a problem with them. There's something wrong with the way they eat, the way they work, the way they do their things. And so there's been like very poor sense of recovery on those aspects. And the education system doesn't help because it's really disintegrated and like moved people away from their identity and their being. And when you look at like land ownership, which is also a colonial mindset. It moved from being a community-centered aspect to individualistic aspect. And what that has done to the mental well-being of individuals is that it's reshaped ways in which support looked like, from a communal element to very individualistic element. And because that's not integrated in the healthcare system, there's a lot of gaps in how people are receiving support with that systemic change. What also is seen is the patterns of leadership. Because of how colonial mindset works, it was like it is power over, and as a result, what we see in how leadership is, it's like a worship of our leadership. And what now the leaders are taking advantage of that by really abusing the power, and they're being worshipped, and they overutilize the resources. On the flip side, there's a very aggressive youth culture, and as a result of also technology. And probably you all have seen how Kenyan youth have been in the space of, like, Twitter and other social media spaces, really being aggressive and challenging things. And I feel that comes with a lot of conflicts and deaths, and we're still recovering from even riots that, and like deaths of like a good number of young people. And that's, I feel like, continuous trauma that is manifesting based on like impacts of colonial trauma. Religiosity is something else as well, and especially women. And we see a lot of like religiosity, and I feel religiosity is really selling hope. So while I acknowledge there's a space that spirituality has in the place of mental health. However, you find how religiosity works here. It is manipulation and selling of false hope. So we find, like, recently there's just like a very intelligent spiritual leader who has like really convinced people that you will get some healing, and like people quit medication, or they quit their responsibilities, or quit things, and their sense of like their sense of being in the place of doing something for themselves. And I feel that is impacting the family system, impacting the way in which people show up for themselves. So yeah, those are the ways in which I feel it may not be obvious to someone, but they are really manifestations of trauma in my society.
Yeah, it's what Brenda actually narrated is not far-fetched from what we are also experiencing in Nigeria, that might not be so obvious to many people. Right, just like she rightly said about colonialism, I think the way it affected us most in Nigeria is the fact that there is this part where we think that if we do not do things the way the colonial master does them, then we are not good enough. It has taken away our agency, it has taken away our individuality, it has taken away that uniqueness to the extent that we question ourselves, we question our uniqueness, we question our creativity, we compare them to the standard of what is operational with the Western world. And also, these are so much influenced our system in such a way that we kind of, it has so influences in such a way that we question our identity. For example, our local language is being called vernacular, and most homes in Nigeria we no longer speak our local languages, right? If you, even in our educational system, we are being punished for speaking our own local languages, right? Because English language is English language, being our lingua franca, has now become our traditional language, so to speak. It's been adopted to be the traditional language. So we now question our identity in that aspect as well. Also, there is this area of many people speak about how aggressive Nigerians, well, not many people, because it's not quite obvious. People see it as being, for most of us, as being audacious and all of that. But no, it's coming from a place of we trying to ask or demand for our rights. And this is as a result of the kind of leadership we've had over the years, in the sense that our leadership is highly corrupt, so corrupt to the extent that they breadcrumbs to the citizen. And this breadcrumbing has become the part of the system in such a way that the citizen now appreciates them for doing the barest minimum that are being done by the taxpayers' funds, right? For example, a leader just last week was telling one of us that we should vote for his own candidate. That what if we do not vote for that candidate, then he's not going to they will not build bridges, they would not construct roads, they will not give us the basic amenities that we ordinarily deserve, that we do not even need to demand for. So these are trauma responses that may not be obvious to people outside, but are obvious, that we know about. Also, there's this competition amongst us, for things, in the sense that because they've made the resources so scarce, right? We are always competing for everything, even in the smallest things, when you go out to pick up something, even when you walk into the stores, you're always competing. You are always in a hurry to get the product, because there is this fear of, by the time I get there, other people would have gotten the best part of it. That is a form of trauma response that we've experienced, that even some of us do not even acknowledge as trauma response, right? And there's also this classism. And this classism comes from the place of, oh, the resources are scarce, but I could afford these resources. You cannot afford these resources. And because you cannot afford these resources, you are less of a person to me. So I can decide to treat you any way I want, the way I want, and all of that. That is also there. It's a form of trauma response that we experience every day. Like Brenda rightly said, the place of religion as well. Because we've resorted to religion as our safe space. That is the only hope. That is the kind of hope that we have, because every other thing is not working in the system, right? So religion has become like our safe space. It has given us like a desired hope that we need. And because of that, there's this loyalty that a lot of us has to our religious leaders, to the extent that when we are going through challenging situations that has to, for example, maybe domestic violence or whatever, and they tell us, oh, pray about it, do not talk about it, and be strong, do not disagree, where do you want to go to, and all of that, we seem to agree. We agree to these things because we feel, since we can't trust our leaders, then we can trust our religious leaders, because they are the one that gives us hope. And because of the hope they give to us, we then tend to listen to everything they say without questioning their authority, without asking questions, and all of that. So it has made every one of us to have like a culture of silence in the face of, traumatic events or challenging events, or you understand what I mean? And there's also the part of the economic trauma, the prolonged unemployment, the inflation, all of that. And also the fact that the leader also withdraw a lot of privileges from us economically, right? So it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. But I think I should also speak about the place of our healthcare systems as well, because it is underfunded. A lot of us are paying out of pocket for basic amenities, basic health care, and that is causing a lot of like financial hardship for many homes. And the responses to these things is aggression, frustrations, anger, bitterness, strife, mistrust, even the mistrust because we do no longer trust our leaders, that we no longer trust ourselves. So every Nigeria is walking on eggshells and hypervigilance. Yeah, so I think I'm going there.
Well, and I was just thinking, so many individuals in your communities are vulnerable to and maybe susceptible to the influence of people who don't have their best interest at heart. And that's where the two of you come in. And I imagine, your roles are so important, in particular being trauma informed, to be able to provide the best care to these individuals. So with all of that being said, we want to know about the two of you as female leaders and what kind of barriers have you encountered? What have you overcome? So, what's it been like to be women working in mental health in Kenya and Nigeria?
Actually, there's an aspect of trauma that is resilience. And I feel personally, as a person like in the mental health space, part of the reason I am in leadership in the mental health space is the experiences as a woman in my own local community. So, growing up culturally, women were not allowed to speak. And because of those experiences of just trying to put my voice out there, trying to challenge it, I feel I earned like certain spaces with men that gave me like a confidence to speak up. And thankfully, my father was one of those people who challenged my community, and I would be given chances in like family meetings and opportunities to speak. I feel as a result, that has given me a chance to grow in the confidence of empowering other women because of what I witnessed other women around me, because I was like one among zero, almost none or few that were allowed to have this space. So in that sense, I feel there's a form of resilience that has been bred as a result of just some of these traumatic experiences. Some of the challenges that I feel we face is first is just the mistrust in the abilities of women. And I have found that sometimes for like certain conversations, tough conversations to be held. For example, I have really worked in the space of like sexual trauma and GBV. And you see, this is directly challenging the place of men and just to engage the men in the conversation. And I don't even want to say men, let me say patriarchy, because it's both men and women who continue to uphold some of the patriarchal narratives that are also trauma in like from a place of trauma. And so some of the challenges that I've faced in that place is how like you're not trusted as a woman already just by being a woman, therefore you sexualized rather than being seen from the voice or what you're presenting. In moments where like while trying to establish a space for like a healing space and I needed to buy land, I realized that it was so difficult to actually buy land. It's my own money, but I need to have a man with me that can be seen, like so that when by the time they sell the land to me, there's a man who is validating it. And I had to like talk to my father and have him go with me to the space so that I could get access to the land. And I feel that's something that, if you have your own money, like there's a lot of difficulty in accessing resources as men. Also, who controls the resources in the country from the place of leadership. And I have worked with women leaders, including the women representative, which is a role that came up as an affirmative action. And what you notice while you work with the women and in the community to just like assert the place of women and the rights of women is how the woman is seen as well and dismissed, and just seeing that it's a gender role. Show up just as a woman. You should not just influence any resources, influence anything, and you have to take on certain things. You have to have a man besides you who introduces you, and these men do not have the same. Do not have to have the same. It's just seen that for the women, it's a requirement. So that invalidation in itself is something that I have experienced in the mental health space. I think the other unfortunate thing is working in the space of like gender and sexual minorities. And I feel just like if you speak about LGBTQ rights, it's almost like an outright dismissal. And so even if you wanted to speak about like pertinence like mental health issues and other leadership issues, you are seen as those ones of the LGBTQ or demonic or and invalidated almost immediately. that's something that quite like comes to mind culturally. Yeah.
Thank you so much. How about you, Ola? What's it been
Okay.
like to be a
Okay.
woman leader?
So yeah, in the space I'm in, like I said, I've been practicing as a global health specialist for a little over 2 decades with integrated trauma informed. You know, one of the key things, major struggles I've heard over the years, the fact that I have to fight twice my strength to prove a point to the men that I can deliver, right? Because first of all, the fact that I'm a woman, due to the patriarchy system that is being operated, I wouldn't call it misogynist, because calling it misogynist will more or less be like I'm trying to label. So I would call it more of patriarchy. Is more or less like, oh, the fact that I'm a woman is number one disapproval. Already question my ability to deliver on any assignment, on any task, on any job, right? So I will have to prove to them, that I could do this. So it would take me extra effort to do that than what is expected of a man. So I will have to deliver times two that would be accepted by a man. If the demand for a man is like 50%, I will have to give 100% for me to feel validated and for them to approve that, yes, I could do that, right? Two, I also need to fight for my voice to be heard, for me to be seen, for my voice to be heard in the room, and for my presence to be known, and for me to be seen, right? Even for them to give me the space to speak. You understand what I mean? And also, like Brenda rightly said, there are situations whereby if I don't have a man around me, I will not be given what, for example, if I need to rent an apartment in Nigeria, there's this, everywhere you go to, the landlord will tell you, I'm not giving my house to a lady. I'm not giving my house to a lady, especially if she's a single lady and she's not yet married. If she's married, they want to see the man that she's married to. In fact, sometimes they want to see your marriage certificates. That does not happen with a man. A man, they don't ask a man of his marital status, but they ask me of my marital status. That aside, then there is also the part of when I'm displeased about a comment, about someone's position, about someone's contribution or whatever, the response is I'm responding from that it is my hormone that is speaking. Nobody wants to believe that this is this is just my opinion about this. But the response I get is, it is because probably she's on a period, or our hormone is speaking, or those kind of side comments. Nobody wants to believe that I have the right to my temperament. I have the right to be upset. I have the right to be happy. I have the right to be sad. I have the right to all of these emotions, right? Everything is always linked to my hormones, because she's a lady, our hormones is speaking, and all of that, right? And also, there is also the place of the questioning of my ability to do things. I bought a car with my money, and they're like, oh no, she has someone that is sponsoring her lifestyle. Like, nobody wants to believe that I could work so hard to earn a good live, to earn money, to be able to give myself good life, right? They question my ability in diverse ways in that. So these are the things I navigate on a daily basis. And also, there's this assumption of, when a job is delivered, or when I'm having a virtual meeting, for example, and the microphone is not on, the video is not on, people first of all address me as a he before they get to hear me, because I'm doing something nice, and they believe that it's only a man that could deliver such a good job. So I will need to turn off my microphone, put on my video, for me to be able to prove to them that I'm actually a she and not a he. And they'll go, oh, and you are doing this amazing work. You are delivering this amazing assignment, So yeah, all of that.
What a surprise.
What is striking me is how similar it is to lead as a woman across our vast differences in countries. It kind of feels like women are derided and displaced in leadership in similar ways, right? So that must be the patriarchy as movement. I am very curious to know, though, thinking about the intergenerational trauma stuff that you guys have talked about, thinking about the across cultures denigration of women and women leaders, and thinking about just the commonalities in the trauma symptoms, but also the mental health systems that you guys treat. How do you use local cultural knowledge, strengths, traditions, or even just the community structures in your healing work? Ola, you're smiling, so I'm going to have you go first.
I'm really trying to think it through. Please just give me some moment to really, really let it sink in and think it through.
Of course, of course. Brenda, do you also need a minute?
I can go. So I practice often as a therapist, and so there are ways in which like I integrate cultural narratives in my work. I feel narratives come naturally for the African context, stories, and I grew up with that continuously. One of the things that I have, like the model I was talking about called ORET, is based on, yes, narrative exposure therapy from the psychology perspective, but I've integrated wisdom that I have gained from like my experience as a trauma therapist, but as well, and most of it, as well, insights from my African traditions. Oret itself is a sense of identity, which comes from the Nandi culture, where it borrows a lot from the family systems and narratives from, including like the animal systems, the like it's like archetypes and like along aspects of identity basically, and ways in which generational traumas can be passed. And so that's one way that I feel, and it was my a 10-year long project, that my dream was to actually address the impact of colonial trauma on my community. Because when the colonialists settled and there were the tea plantations, it really impacted the ways in which people behave. And so specifically my own family, and we see it in all the extended families, patterns in which the people run their lives. And I felt I needed, as a psychologist, to be able to start from home before I can support others. But interestingly, I've been able to offer this program to people in Kenya, people in Nigeria, people in Ethiopia, Uganda. And yeah, it's been amazing to just witness how it's unfolding and how similar the African traditions are. The other thing that I do is use of rituals, ceremonies, just from the wisdom that I have gained from the our traditions. And so like I integrate movements, yoga, for example, and like really borrow movement from the African sense, including dances. I work also with plants, and I decided I'm named after a medicine woman, and so I know a lot of plant medicine, but I have also gone ahead and just tried to learn plant medicine from a clinical perspective. And so I integrate that through scents, through teas and herbs like that in the space of healing. The other thing that I do is like introducing the process of working with communities. And so in my own community, and ceremonies, I work with the different groups and borrow from the leadership of the different groups just to inform them about the mental health perspective. I'm hoping in the next year I can bring back women transition ceremonies, which was moved out because of female genital mutilation, no longer legal. However, the whole of the value of the ceremony was taken off. And so part of the ways in which I've been trying to bring that back and learning chants, relearning other traditions, and in a way to just empower the women and just to teach them of their own power to heal from the family unit, from their individual unit, and also from the communal units. So yeah, those are the ways in which I really borrow. Lastly, I'm an intuitive therapist also, and I really trust my intuition, and I feel that is informed by my name because I was given a name of a healer. And so there's a confidence that I lean on there around my intuition, and I feel it served me beyond the knowledge that I've gained from my training.
That's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank
Ola, are
you.
you ready?
Yeah, I am actually. Okay, so for me, first of all, I think because of the way I was raised, I was actually raised differently from all the norms and whatever, the societal norms and all of that. My father raised my sister and I to be quite brave, audacious, and bold and courageous, and also to be well grounded and centered. So that's the first thing I leverage on in the first place. Then, secondly, I lead from a place of empathy. So this empathy helps me to first of all process whatever it is that is going on in my environment, so that first of I don't feel attacked. So I'm not responding from a place of defensive, you know. So that is the first thing for me. I also try to understand the cultural, the different culture, because Nigeria is quite diverse. It's quite different from, we have about over 200 cultural languages and tribes. So first of all, I try to understand my environment, the environment I'm in, the culture, the tribe, and all of that, so that I understand that when I'm relating with them, I'm relating from a place of identifying with them and from a place of understanding. So I do not misconstrue whatever is being spoken to me, and I don't speak in such a way that I'm being misconstrued. So I establish that understanding first, which helps me to accept them and for me to be accepted. So I identify with my environment first, with the community, with the culture, with the system, or whatever it is I am doing at that particular time. Then thirdly, I adopt the place of storytelling a lot in most of my practices. I adopt the place of storytelling. So storytelling could be about me, it could be about the system, it could be about the history, it could be just in diverse ways. Then I also adopt the place of, there's this culture we have generally in Nigeria. It is the place of, in my local language, it is called alo. It's like a folklore. It's something that everyone embraces. Initially, in years past, with our ancestors, parents, there is this storytelling under the moonlight. Like at night, people come together. It was a practice that is no longer, it has gone into extinction now. So I try to bring in a lot of folklore. And what that does is it helps to ground my audience to the roots of our culture, to the roots of our tradition. And from that point of view, I relate a lot of therapy. For example, there's the place of dancing to cultural beats, right? So it's still part of our folklore. There is the place of, we call it gong. It tells a lot of story. It's a traditional drum. It tells a lot of story. That is also part of the therapy I've adopted in my practice. In some, not in all settings, but in some settings, because it's a traditional beat that they think that is attributed to our ancestors, to the gods of the land, right? It's part of what I adopt in therapy. They call them onigogo in my tradition. They tell a story on the local drums, right? I adopted that. Then also, like I said, I also try to put myself in the middle of many things going on around. So it is not them and me, it is us. So when this happens most times, it makes me, even the men, I feel accepted in the community. I feel accepted by the audience. And that kind of helps ground me, to center me, to be able to deliver or to be able to provide therapy, And because I practice Christianity, yeah, it also helps me to be able to, especially when I'm being invited to churches to speak or to minister or to do whatever, I put on my trauma-informed cap to speak in churches. So I try to disabuse a lot of, religious misconceptions about silence, about, praying about issues that you need to seek therapy for. And also the fact that therapy, I don't know of other African countries, but in Nigeria, they feel when you seek therapy, it is a Western idea. It is not Nigerian idea to seek therapy. And it also means probably you are now psychologically distressed in such a way that you need to be in the mental home. You understand what I mean? So I try to speak about these things in the church because these are things that are forbidden to be spoken about in the church. So I speak about this thing in church in such a way that it is acceptable, in such a way that they can embrace it, they will understand it. And most times I try to make myself the example for them so that it will be easy for them to identify with it and all of that. So yeah, these are the ways that I've been practicing it in such a way that it's been acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes a lot of creativity to figure out what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Absolutely. I was accepting, acknowledging that.
But to try something, put yourself out there as an example, like you do, Ola, and then say, here, go with it and try it yourself. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
What advice do you two have for women who want to get involved in either the global mental health space or just as any woman leader within or outside of mental health?
I think the first thing for me is to be audacious. Yeah. Be centered, be grounded, understand who you are. Right? Because it is easy for women, especially, to question themselves. You know how I was just speaking to someone shortly before this podcast, how people commend you for the great things you are doing as a woman, and you're like, oh, no, it's nothing. How we do not accept good commendation and all, because I think it's a trauma response, right? But if we are grounded, centered, and would know who we are, right? It's easy for if people compliment you, you will accept. In fact, you now when people compliment me, I tell them, oh yes, I know. And I go to tell them one or two more things about myself, right? Because the honest truth is we are doing a lot. And I'm going to give an example of the support I provide to the University of Washington consistently since 2017. I've been doing this collaboration with the University of Washington. As I speak right now in Nigeria, I am the best site coordinator because the university sent me an email. In fact, I've been able to provide a lot of support to the university to design the program in such a way that it is more acceptable within the African continent. I never see this for a very long time. I didn't see the beauty of what I was doing for a very long time because many, especially the men, were attacking me. Other men that were site coordinators, they question everything I do. They attack me on several fronts. But in recent times, when I hear the feedback from the students, from the participants, and I'm like, whoa, so you are doing a lot of amazing things. And when the university now had to send me an email to commend me for the good job I'm doing, and for them to tell me that I'm the best site in Nigeria, that kind of made me feel very, and since then I've been carrying my shoulder up high, not in pride anyway, but in the pride
Excellent.
of the things that I'm doing. Right?
Absolutely.
So be audacious, take a lot of risk, right? Put yourself out there, make yourself visible, amplify your voice to be heard. If you need to scream from the back, scream from the back. Let them know you are in the room. Do not be silent. Let them know you are in the room, right? And give it all it takes. Like I said, it takes extra effort, but give it all it takes. I'm currently doing my MBA, and in all my exams, I'm scoring 100% because I want them to know that I have earned it. Right? It wasn't given to me on a platform. It wasn't just handed over to me. I worked hard for it and I earned it. If that is what it will take, I'm going to give it to it. So that is just what I'm going to advise. We shouldn't be laid back. We shouldn't be lackadaisical. We shouldn't question ourselves. Yes, it is a lot of times we have this imposter syndrome. Are we doing? Yes, we are doing enough. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small, no matter how big. Celebrate them, document them, and celebrate them. This is what I'm going to say to every woman who is in a leadership position, especially in the health space. Yesterday, we had a meeting on policy development in Ghana and Nigeria. Initially in such a meeting, I don't speak up. I made sure that they saw my comments. You can comment anonymously, but I comment with my name. And all my comments were seen, they were validated. So yeah, just make yourself visible, audacious, be courageous, be bold. Do not question yourself. Celebrate your wins, no matter how big and small. Thank you very much.
I love this so
So
much.
be brave, be loud, and
Mhm.
don't apologize. How about you, Brenda?
Oh, reminders. I feel Ola was speaking to me. I am glad I'm going in with advice. But yeah, from my end, one thing that comes to mind is self-care. I feel in the space of leadership and in the space of mental health, like it's so easy, and especially like in a setup like in African setup where resources are limited, while the challenges are many, you can find yourself being too absorbed in the situations and forget your own well-being. I'm speaking from experience, and I've had to struggle with burnout twice and recover, which was not easy. And now self care has become like a duty for me. So I really advise women to look at self care from a holistic sense, from a physical well being, from a psychological well being, from emotional well being, spiritual well being, social well being, and just as well how you look, because we are the flowers. We need to shine and glow when we can, and if we need to calm ourselves, it's still okay as well. So that's part of the self-care. Second thing that comes to mind is like building networks. The social capital or people are like very key. I feel in the space that I have grown and how I have reached where I am today, I've been supported by other people. I learned this from a colleague of mine, Wendy, and thanks to Wendy, I met you, Kristina. It's her who showed me how like networks are a key part. And you see in a space where like the mental health professionals, we didn't even have a body. It's like licensed as therapists, but now we do. And before that was happening, we were already coming together as a group of community, thanks to Wendy. And so through that, I am learning how important networks are, and they support the work and they allow you to really grow in the way and validate actually the work. When I was creating the ORET model, I had to reach out to colleagues in different expertise to just help validate and give me insights that may be a blind spot to me. And I feel that really empowered the model and beyond just like the ways in which I look at the world. The other thing, and lastly, is for women is to understand the place of like the circle and the cycle. Yeah, I feel like when women come together in a circle, and you see like culturally that was part of like the culture. When people are in their cycle, they come together in a circle, and there's a place for that. And I feel there's a way in which we do not understand the hormonal, like constantly shifts are happening for us as women, from menstruation to menopause to perimenopause to all those things, to birth to postpartum, prenatal, all those things that happen that are unique to women. I feel there's a gap in the way we understand, and because the economic function of the world is very masculine, it's so easy to remove the place of our cycle. And so that brings the circle into place, which is like coming together as women and sharing the narratives and experiences and supporting one another and seeing what are the ways in which I can show up in my low circle, and what are the ways I can show up in my very energetic circle. And I love it that Ola has talked about being visible. Please look so smart, shine, look at the mirror and just really feel beautiful. I feel that there's a lot of power in feeling and looking beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I love it. Yes.
One of the things I love about coming together with Brenda and Ola is the sense of community and the strong bonds formed in such a short period of knowing you. I'm struck by the fact in thinking that each podcast that we have, we're just growing our community. We are growing our network, but we're also growing these intricate circles of support systems and networks. So with that being said, Brenda and Ola, welcome to this circle. And we hope that you feel supported and
Thank
that we
you.
can continue to support you and you support us in the many and different ways that we all are going to grow in this adventure that we call women leadership. Yay! Thank you so much.
Incredible
Thank you.
trailblazers. Thank you for being here.
Hey, listeners. On this International Women's Day, Abby and I wanted to share a coffee break for the brain about women and friendship. We suspect that you already value your friendships with women for many and varied reasons, but allow us to add a little science-based data to these reasons. You may have heard of the fight, flight, freeze response to stress, especially big life-threatening stresses. It may come as no surprise to you that this understanding of stress is based in long ago research mostly done on men. When we look at the stress response in women, however, as a landmark UCLA study has recently done, we find a difference. Women's experience of stress actually drives us to make and maintain friendships with other women. It's a stunning find that has turned 5 decades of stress research upside down. Laura Cousin-Klein, PhD, now an assistant professor of biobehavioral health at Penn State University, and one of the study's authors, suggests that women respond to stress with a cascade of brain chemicals that are unique to women. In reaction to the stress hormones cortisol and adrenaline, women release oxytocin. When oxytocin is released, it buffers the fight or flight response and encourages a woman to tend children or the home and or gather with other women instead. When a woman engages in this tending or befriending behavior, studies suggest that more oxytocin is released, which then further counters stress and produces a calming effect. This calming response does not occur in men, says Dr. Klein, because testosterone, which men produce in high levels when they're under stress, seems to reduce the effects of oxytocin. Estrogen, she adds, seems to enhance it. So next time you're feeling overwhelmed, call up your girlies for a night out or a craft in. And make sure you have some female-centered time in your schedule on a regular basis to help offset the daily onslaught of uncertainty, conflict, and discomfort. Many, many thanks to Gail Berkowitz at the Women's Brain Health Institute for inspiring this coffee break. And for more details and information on the science, see the links in the show notes.
For more information on today's guest, check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks for joining us.